Hello, in this video I'll be demonstrating how to generate annuity present value factor table, and I'm going to use two methods. The first method is going to be the insert function method, and then the second method is what I refer to as the present value call up method. Right, again I'll be able to demonstrate to you so that you can actually understand what I mean by this. Now in both cases you're actually able to complete the task, but again it's a question of preference. After the two demonstrations you should be able to figure out which one you feel much more comfortable with, and again there's no harm in actually knowing both methods, but just in case you have preference or for one over the other, I make the two options available. So you'll see that I've already done some preliminary work just to set up the table so that we can really zero in on the more important work of actually generating the formula itself. So again, this is where we are going to have our numbers actually generated, and we'll be able to create the formula once, and then we'll be able to copy it across. Again, I'll be demonstrating how you can speed up that process by doing absolute referencing for some of the elements in your formula. Then that will be able to copy across the formula, and we'll be able to copy the formula downwards as well. So it speeds up things a little bit when you use that type of method. Okay, so insert function. So again, here when you're in Excel, you'll see there's insert function option available here. So when you click on it, actually it just opens up a dialog box, and while you're there, if for any reason you couldn't see the function that you wanted in here, then you can actually type it in. You just over type that and then say go. So usually it could be present value in full or PV in full in this particular case. But anyway, we can see that present value function, it's already active here, so it's already selected. So we can go ahead and say OK, and then it opens up yet another dialog box, which is actually the working dialog box where we're actually going to build the arguments for the particular formula. So again, it begins by asking us to enter the rate. Now we want our formula to be dynamic, so because of that we're actually going to be referencing the actual cell where the rate is placed. So I click on that and it types in for us that rate is actually in B3 for the purpose of the particular formula. But now, because we want to create this formula once and then copy it across and down, we want to make sure that the row is not going to change, right? That the third row, the number in this cell reference should not change. So because of that, we will actually need to type in, it's either we can type in manually a $sign to the left of 3, then that way it's going to do absolute referencing for us. So when we copy the formula across, the row number is not going to change, right? Of course, that's a more manual way of actually doing that. So instead of that, we can actually use the F4 key on your keyboard, which is the function key 4, right? The F4 key means function 4, right? So press it once, you can see that it types in those $signs for us. We press it again, it removes 1 for the column, right, and leaves 1 for the row, and that's the one that we want. Then we move on to the next box, which is the number of periods, and we can see again we want it to be dynamic, so we click on that. We want it to vary when we copy the formula downwards, but again we want it to maintain the column, so the A should not change. So F4, 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 and now we've got a $sign to the left side of A. Okay, now for annuity, we use the payment, the PMT. Because annuity, we are saying the same amount every year or every interval, right? So it's actually a payment annually that will go over a period of time. So this is where we'll just put in a -1 because we want to generate a factor, right? So if we're actually calculating the actual present value amount, then we would either enter the amount, the actual amount in here, of course preceded by minus, so that the result will be a positive number, because by default Excel will give you a negative number. Right, so, but in this particular case, it's just a factor that we want to generate, so we put in a -1 in there. And then you can already see that the factor is actually being generated. So we go ahead and say, okay. Now, once we've done that, because we did all the preparatory work by doing absolute referencing for the column, absolute referencing for the row, we can now copy this across, and then we can copy this downwards using the fill handle. And before we know it, we've actually generated the present value of an annuity of $1 per period. Okay, so that's the first method where we actually use the insert function. Now we are moving over to create the same formula using a slightly different method. Because remember that before we went here and said insert function, we can actually go, instead of doing that, we can enter the equal sign and we can call up the function, right? That's why it's referring to this as a call up function. So you can see it comes up, and with that fx as well, and then we double click on it. So the secret is that you call it up, and then when it shows up, double click on it so that it's actually activated. Now that it's activated, it does show you the template that you're actually going to follow. Pretty similar to what was in the dialog box, but a little bit different. It's right there on the screen for you. And it's highlighting the rate, saying you have to deal with the rate first. So we know this is the rate. And again, we use the same absolute referencing of the row, okay, comma. Once you put a comma, it takes you to the next item, in this case, the number of periods, right? And in this case, we know this is going to be the column, the number of periods, but we want to absolute reference column A. So we want to have a $sign to the left of A, right? Then comma, then is payment. So it's -1, closing parenthesis. You can see that the formula is exactly the same as using the insert function, but the only difference is that the experience was a little bit different because we're using the template that was actually in front of us. Right, so once we've done that, press enter, and we can see that the value is actually exactly the same. Then we can use our fill handle to copy that to the right. We use our fill handle to copy downwards. And before you know it, we have actually accomplished the task by using two approaches to generating the annuity present value factor table. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found this useful. And again, if you do, share, express yourself by liking it, and share that with others. And again, just be sure to practice. Practice makes perfect. And again, a lot of functionality in Excel that is just so amazing. It enables you to do the kind of things that many people would think, you know, they're not even possible at all. But what is more important for you to practice and also learn how to find the shortcuts so that you will be more productive whenever you're using Excel. Otherwise, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.